All right, welcome. I'm Dr. Michael Wild. I'm an expert in cellular healing, digestive repair, and detoxification. We're here tonight to talk about something called leaky gut, how to find and fix your food sensitivities. So, in speaking about leaky gut, many people have heard the term before and some people haven't. Raise your hand if you have heard the term before. Okay, about half the room. Okay, so this is something that's starting to become more and more well known in our world, unfortunately, because more and more people are suffering from it. Actually, I believe we're probably all suffering from it to some degree. It just depends on what the severity is. And you're going to learn tonight about why I say that. You're going to learn about the things that cause it. We're going to learn about what corrects it and cures it. Okay? So let's move forward a little bit. Let's tell you a bit more about myself. My background is in psychophysiology for my undergraduate work, where I studied the mind-body connection. That enabled me to help understand how stress and hormones affects your function and your health better, so I could better serve my patients. My graduate work was done at New York Chiropractic College in functional neurology and natural methods of getting your nervous system to work better, as well as functional nutrition. And I have hundreds of hours of ongoing continuing education in the world of functional nutrition, and I am a certified cellular healing specialist. I was licensed by the Virginia Board of Medicine as a chiropractic physician back in 1993. I've been living here in Virginia for about 24 years now, and at this point, I'm the proud and broke father of 2 children going to UVA. I'm also the author of a book called The Holistic Handbook for Optimal Health. This is a 210-page self-help guide that tells you all about how to balance nervous system function with nutrition for a healthier you. I'm also the founder of what's known as Get Into Balance Cellular Healing Center. As I said, I'm a cellular healing specialist, and I want to explain what the Get Into Balance Center is about. The N2 stands for neuronutritional. Again, going back to the balance of neurology and nutrition. I've been doing natural health care for about 25 years now, and I determined and learned that we all know that balance is necessary in many facets of life, right? And particularly when it comes to health. And I found over a period of about 20 years or so that we really need to have a particular balance going on in the body to really attain and maintain health. And that is a balance of nervous system function and nutrition. So think about it this way. Most of us like to think of our body as a temple, but most people come to because their temple's in ruins, right? And when the temple's in ruins, they want to rebuild that temple. That's the goal. So the first thing they want to do, if you're going to build any new structure, is hire a foreman who knows how to control and coordinate the healing and repair efforts of that temple and control all the workers in your body. That is the purpose of your nervous system. Your brain and spinal cord control and coordinate all the functions of your body, including the healing and repair of your cells. Now, you could have the best foreman on the job, but if you built that temple out of the cheapest materials, would it be a very good temple? Don't be afraid to nod your head or respond in any way. Okay? No, right? So you want to build it out of the best possible, strongest materials, and that's where nutrients come in, right? Because you are what you eat, right? We all know that. So what goes in our mouths ultimately is what our body has to use for fuel and to build our new tissues, right? To create cells. Who here believes that Twinkies actually build new cells? Not so much, right? So we know we make a lot of bad choices in regard to nutrition, and we can make better choices. And most people are here because they are making better choices, right? We're at Elwood Thompson's tonight because we want to learn a little bit more about how to take even better care of yourselves than you already know about. The Get Into Balance Cellular Healing Center focuses on what's known as functional restorative medicine. Raise your hand if you know exactly what that is. All right, one person because she's heard me speak before, right? So functional restorative medicine focuses on not the tip of the iceberg necessarily. This is what people come to me for, but I don't treat them for their symptoms or for their disease. I treat them for the underlying causes of those symptoms and diseases, for the things that went wrong in the first place, which is all of the things we see under the water, right? We know it's not the tip of the iceberg that sinks the ship, it's the part you can't see. So when we get to the point of developing a disease or malfunction in our body, typically our typical American medical system wants to treat those symptoms, right? Wants to go after that condition, but does very little to treat the underlying cause of that condition. And if you notice, we're going to see a few things that are involved in all of these diseases above. And tonight we're going to talk about digestive, absorptive, and microbiological imbalances. Okay? And that's where leaky gut comes into play. So the reason we're talking about this is because when you're building that temple, do you start with the roof? Right? You start with the foundation. And the foundation for anybody's health is digestion and the gastrointestinal system. It all starts there. People come to me for all these conditions you see up top, and I start all of them with looking at their digestion. They're confused sometimes by that and say, hey, I have cancer. Why are you looking at my digestion? It's not in my gut. Or I have hypothyroidism, or I have sex hormone imbalances. Whatever the problem may be, I start with the gut. Because our digestive system plays some very important roles in our overall health. The bacteria that live in your gut, we know, are involved in digestion, right, breaking down our food, but they're also involved in absorption, making sure that food gets across our intestinal membrane and into our bloodstream. Also, then they have to get assimilated into our cells. So if you're not absorbing it well or getting into your cells, it doesn't really matter what you're eating, right? So digestion is very important just to get our nutrients. And most people don't realize that that bacterial balance in your gut determines what nutrients you absorb. So I can give everyone in this room the exact same food, and you can all get different nutrients out of it based on the bacterial balance in your gut right now. Very interesting to think about that, okay? Number two, the bacteria in your gut control and coordinate hormone balance in your body. Most people don't realize that either. We recently discovered that the genes within the bacteria communicate with the genes of our cells, of our organs and glands, and of our brain, and actually control and coordinate the release of hormones in our body. And hormones are the chemical messengers of the body. Without proper hormone balance, your body cannot work right, okay? Does anyone here know anybody suffering from any perceived hormone imbalances? Right? Anyone at all? Like maybe going through low testosterone or estrogen imbalances, thyroid problems, sugar metabolism problems like diabetes. These are all hormone problems, okay? Excess weight they can't get rid of, hormone problems. Very, very common. Your body does not work if the hormones don't work, okay? But not only that, our gut also controls our immune function for our body. We have a layer within our intestine called the GALT layer, gastric-associated lymphoid tissue. And that's where the vast majority of all the white blood cells in your entire body live. As a matter of fact, 70% of all of your white blood cells live in your intestinal tract. Why? Because how are most things getting into our body that might hurt us? Through the big holes we have, right? So we want our best defense to be right there at our intestinal tract. So that's the number one source of your immune system. The number two most densely populated immune system in your body is inside your nose. And what comes into your sinuses, the other holes we have to go in. So we always want those two places working well, okay? So that 70% in your gut controls 90% of your entire body's immune function. Is there anyone think that might be important? Absolutely, especially if you're dealing with something like cancer, okay? Or autoimmune diseases where your body's actually attacking itself because your immune system is confused. And we'll talk about how those relate to each other tonight. The next question is, why are you here? Right? We have a lot of different people here in the room, probably here for a number of different reasons. Some of us are here because we're suffering from actual digestive problems that have known symptoms that you can associate with, right? Indigestion or GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, heartburn, acid coming back up in your stomach, into your throat, constipation and diarrhea, one or the other or alternating. Let me see what today is going to bring, right? Bloating, irritable bowel syndrome, diverticulitis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, gluten sensitivity, celiac. Anybody here feel that they might be having one of these problems? Anyone? Right, okay. Some people are here for an opposite end altogether. I talked about how the digestive system controls so many functions in your body. Well, most people don't realize that the neurotransmitters that control your emotions, anxiety, depression, even involved with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, all come from your gut, okay? 90% of the serotonin in your brain, which is the hormone or neurotransmitter that keeps you happy and less anxious, is made in your gut. 10% is made in your brain. The new trend in even psychiatry is no longer to give antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, but to work on the gut first, since 90% of the hormones come from there. Does that make more sense? Right? So I have people who come to me suffering from emotional disorders as well for that reason. Or people have what we call mystery illnesses, where they cannot find the answer to this no matter what. They've gone to every top specialist there is. They've tried every kind of diet. They've taken every kind of drug, and they still have these weird problems. These could be food sensitivities and or allergies, chronic fatigue that won't go away, headaches, chronic muscle or joint pain, skin issues like eczema, rashes, psoriasis, stubborn weight gain, or, again, problems with hormones, stress hormones, sex hormones, or metabolism hormones. And metabolism hormones are handling your sugar and storing your fat. Okay? That's involved with that. And this also can lead to a condition called metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is probably the fastest growing disorder in the United States. If you see anybody who has a large waistband, right, where they look down and their belly's sticking out, or they have high blood pressure, or they have high triglycerides, okay, these are all indicative of metabolic syndrome. And this is a syndrome in which your body's telling us everything's going to pot. I'm falling apart, okay? And when I ask people about this, do you have these symptoms? They say, oh no, because I take drugs for that. Well, if you take drugs for it, you do have the symptoms, okay? Just because the drugs are controlling that right now doesn't mean you're actually fixing the problem, right? Because think about it. With all these different kinds of problems we have, what do we do for this most of the time? We take drugs, right? And do drugs really fix the problem? Or do drugs actually create more problems? So most of the time, they create more problems. I'm not saying there aren't some miracle drugs out there, because there are, right? But 90% of the drugs that you read on the labels ever say for the permanent cure of the following conditions? No, it says for the temporary relief of. Because that's what the vast majority of drugs do. They temporarily relieve a symptom that we don't like, but they don't really fix the underlying problem, because our medical system is designed to do just that. We have not created a system that actually focuses on fixing. We've created a system that focuses on feeling, right? How do you feel? Not necessarily how are you, really. So, and we know that drugs have plenty of side effects, right? As a matter of fact, if it didn't have side effects, it really isn't a drug, okay? Now, the crazy thing is, think about it. Most of the times when you have these problems, let's talk about high blood pressure or high cholesterol. When do they tell you that you can come off that drug? Never, right? They put you on that drug forever. So is that drug really fixing your problem? Because if it was fixing your problem, you would never need a refill, right? So it's not fixing the problem, it's a crutch, and that crutch has lots of serious repercussions. So what I want to talk to you about tonight is how to actually fix some of these problems, not just rely on the drugs, okay? Because the drugs are going to create more problems. Anyone here with any gastrointestinal problems that they take proton pump inhibitors for, things like Prilosec or Zantac? Anybody using anything like that? Okay? So proton pump inhibitors are the most commonly prescribed drugs for indigestion, heartburn, lots of stomach upset. What they don't tell you when you're taking those drugs most of the time is that they're stopping your acid production, right? That's their job. Can you digest your food without acid? Can you absorb your nutrients without acid? As a matter of fact, no. Many minerals, especially calcium, require a high acid content to carry them across the wall of your intestine and get into your cells. And without that, when people take these drugs like Prilosec and Zantac, their risk of hip fracture goes up 300% if you take them for 1 year, regardless of age, because you can't get the calcium into your bones. Calcium is also necessary for muscle function, for immune function, amongst many, many other things, okay? So these are not a good solution to our problems. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of our presentation tonight, I want to talk about mindset, because what you focus on is what you're going to get. If you focus on health, you'll eventually get health. If you focus on disease and disease treatment, you're going to continue with disease and disease treatment. So I want you to think really about what your focus should be and what your focus will be after our presentation tonight. Anybody here ever go to any kind of other presentation where they learned some new information they really liked? Anyone? I hope everybody, right? Okay? And when you did that, you maybe even took a lot of notes. Or maybe you bought the course materials, right? And that was a lot of really great information. Well, who believes that knowledge is power, right? I don't believe that at all, because I've done the exact same thing, and I've come home and I've put that on the shelf, and I never opened it. How powerful was it? It's gathering dust over here. Knowledge that you act on is powerful, and that's a key distinction. As a matter of fact, when we look at the difference between success and failure, it all comes down to action. Anytime anyone learns something new, a decision has to be made. Am I actually going to do something with this, or am I going to put it in my back pocket? Right? Well, stats show us, sad but true, only 3% of people actually do something with it and become successful with that new endeavor or new information. 97% of us will actually fail to do anything with that new information That's just sad, right? We all fall into that. It seems to be human nature. So I'm going to ask you to tell yourself tonight, I'm not going to let that happen with what I learned from Dr. Weil tonight. I'm going to be a 3%er. I'm going to be successful in making a change in my life. Why? Because I'm going to give you information tonight that literally can stop and reverse and heal your digestive problems. And I assume you're all here because you have some concern about that, right? So if you leave here and do nothing I told you, guess what? You will get nothing in return. Okay? So please be a 3%er. So what is leaky gut? Exactly. What's really going on here? Well, here we're looking under a microscope at the gut lining. And the gut lining has all these finger-like projections called villi and microvilli that are moving food along your intestinal tract. But that's not their only job. Along the walls of these microvilli are cells that are actually absorbing those nutrients and keeping bad guys out. Keeping out parasites, bacteria, viruses, toxins from our environment. Okay? And letting digested food get in. Not undigested food, but digested food. So that's what they're supposed to do. And that layer of cells is only 1 cell thick. Think about that for a second. Can anybody see a cell with your eyes? No, they're microscopic. And there's only 1 cell thick that is your layer of defense between the bad guys and the good guys, and letting nutrients in and waste out, and not letting parasites and bacteria and toxins into your system. So those cells better be healthy, right? Well, when we develop inflammation of our gut lining, and I'm going to tell you tonight exactly how that inflammation gets caused, but when we develop inflammation of our gut lining, it damages those microvilli. Instead of having these finger-like projections, they begin to flatten out. And we start to create gaps and holes between them. When that happens, those cells become damaged. And those tight junctions between the cells that are supposed to keep the bad guys out get loose. And when they get loose, bad guys can come in, toxins can drop in, parasites and harmful bacteria can drop in, and undigested food particles can drop in and get into your bloodstream. That's a big problem. This is why we call it leaky gut, okay? A gate has opened and bad stuff got in. So what actually opens that gate? Well, things like toxins and bacteria and certain stress hormones and other things that can get into our system trigger the release of a protein called zonulin. And zonulin actually opens those gates. So the more zonulin you have floating in your intestinal tract, the more leaky gut you're going to develop because all the gates are going to open. Okay? Now, the crazy thing is zonulin isn't just in your gut. When that gets triggered, it also triggers the zonulin in your lungs and in your brain. And you develop what we call leaky lung and leaky brain. In leaky lung, the things we're breathing in, the toxins we're breathing in, get into our system more easily. In leaky brain, we have something called the blood-brain barrier that's supposed to protect our brain from dangerous toxins at all times. It starts to melt. Okay? It starts to break down, and then toxins get into your brain. When toxins get into your brain, we start developing brain-related disorders like dementia and Alzheimer's. Okay? So this is how it happens. Let's look at it a little bit differently. When that food gets through that intestinal lining as undigested food particles, we have some issues. So food particles are supposed to be itty-bitty tiny, like the size of my pinky nail, when they've been digested, to get through that lining. But when the gate opens, my whole pinky can drop through. Okay? So the food's not yet been fully digested. Well, when that drops through, a molecule of that size looks an awful lot like a bacteria or a parasite, so your immune system starts to attack it. Okay? And when that happens, we start developing issues with our food. Our body becomes confused. And there's 3 main issues that we can create. There's food intolerance, food sensitivity, and food allergies. Now, food intolerances are not truly an immune system problem. They're more an actual digestive system problem. And because of the inflammation to our gut lining and irritation, we no longer create and utilize certain enzymes properly. And if you don't have enzymes, you can't break your food down properly. Okay? And you may be familiar with one version of that, lactose intolerance. Anybody know anybody who has lactose intolerance? Right? So lactose is a sugar found in dairy products. Lactase is the enzyme your body needs to break the lactose down. So if you don't have enough lactase, and it's not being produced properly from your intestinal lining and from your glands and the rest of your body, you're going to develop lactose intolerance because you can't break it down. So what happens with someone with lactose intolerance and they have dairy? They know it pretty fast, right? Okay, usually get a lot of rumbling in the stomach and they got to run to the bathroom. okay? We also have food sensitivities. Food sensitivities are an immune issue, as are food allergies, but there's a difference. We have two halves to our immune system. We have the white blood cell-driven half and the antibody-driven half. The white blood cells, if you think of your immune system as your body's army, these guys are the foot soldiers, the infantry. If something's come in they don't like or don't recognize, they're going to send out some scouts to check it out. And if they say, I don't think you belong over here, they're going to attack and try to kill whatever doesn't belong. If that isn't working very well, they'll start call up the platoon and say, send in the reinforcements. And more soldiers will come in to fight this fight. And that's what starts to happen when we have food sensitivities. And this is all happening in that gastric layer of your intestinal tract where 70% of your whole body's white blood cells live, okay? Now, when they start doing that, they also release lots of chemistry of inflammation, cytokines, leukotrienes, prostaglandins, and they do release a few antibodies as well called IgA and IgM. So these start to cause a war zone in your intestinal tract. And eventually it gets really ugly, okay? And it starts causing damage and destruction to your gastrointestinal tract, which creates more leaky gut. Now, a weird thing happens. They beat up all the food and get rid of it and think they've taken care of it, but what happens about 6 hours later? You eat again, right? And it starts all over again. And you have a tendency to do this a few times every day. So this battle goes on and gets bigger and bigger. And eventually, some of that food is going to get past the white blood cells, okay? Because the white blood cells are not only attacking food, they're supposed to be attacking all the bad guys too. And so we start to wear our immune system a little thin. It starts doing the wrong thing, focusing more on digestion than it does on warding off the enemy. So some of these tissues, some of these food items are going to get past your white blood cells. And I said earlier, you are what you eat. So those food particles that get past, those proteins eventually get created into the cells that make up your body. And you have 100 trillion cells, okay? So once that starts to happen and gets past that, the white blood cells go, oh man, these guys are getting past me and I think they're the enemy, so I better call in the tanks and jets to bomb this place. And the tanks and jets are the antibodies, okay? These are the big guns. Primarily two kinds, IgG and IgE. So once we trigger IgG and IgE antibodies, we call that food allergies. Now IgG are temporary, much like food sensitivities. You can reverse food sensitivities and you can reverse IgG antibodies if you avoid the foods that are causing the trigger for at least 6 months, okay? What you can't turn off are your IgE long-term antibodies. These guys have a memory like an elephant, and you could stop eating that for 5 years, have it again, and instantly get the problem again, okay? So we have a couple of different issues going on here. In our practice, we actually fix all of these things, but we're going to focus more on this particularly tonight, okay? So let's look at that leaky gut picture again. So food particles come through, we develop intolerances, sensitivities, and allergies. This starts creating immune abnormalities because we're getting confused, attacking our food, and eventually, as I said, you are what you eat. So the cells become different tissues. And then your immune system starts attacking it not just in your gut, but wherever that cell went. So if that cell became your heart, your immune system will attack your heart. If it became your brain, your immune system will attack your brain. If it became your thyroid, your pancreas, your testicles, your ovaries, okay? Your body will start to attack those areas, creating inflammation and damage to those tissues. That's going to create malfunction of those tissues, and we call that autoimmune. Your body's attacking itself, okay? There are over 150 known autoimmune conditions that we've given names to based on how that end picture looks. Multiple sclerosis, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, allergies, eczema, psoriasis. These are all autoimmune conditions, okay? They all start the same way. They just end up in different places, okay? Fibromyalgia, the list goes on and on. As a matter of fact, that leaky gut will affect many different systems of your body. No system is safe, okay? Sad to say. And this will affect your entire body's health. This is where it starts. This is why digestion is foundational to dealing with all these other problems. If someone comes to me for cancer, someone comes to me for diabetes, someone comes to me for dementia, someone comes to me for osteoporosis, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, heart conditions, hypothyroidism, sexual dysfunction, hormone problems, where do I start? Here, okay? Well, at a little bit of a more complicated look at it, we have various triggering mechanisms that come from the food, which starts to activate our immune system, which starts to pump out more chemicals of inflammation, which then leads to all these continued effects. The inflammation then starts to affect the entire body, damaging your tissues, affecting your pain levels, causing swelling in your tissues, affecting your neurologic system, your hormone system, and it creates even more gut permeability or leaky gut. So it becomes a downward spiral. Leaky gut creates more leaky gut. Okay? And here are some of the conditions that are more commonly caused by this scenario. Now you can have others outside this, but these are very common things. And actually looking at this, I want to tell you a story about a guy that I know that I'm really, really close to, a guy named Mike. And when Mike was in elementary school, he started to develop gastroesophageal reflux disease, right? Heartburn and acid coming up in elementary school and middle school. And he was told at the time, at 12 years old, to just keep taking Tums all the time. As long as it keeps the acid down, you're fine. Just take it for the rest of your life, okay, until you need something stronger. Luckily, Mike actually got introduced to chiropractic care by his family at the time, and by correcting his neurologic function, his gastroesophageal reflux went away in 3 months. All right, he had it for years, gone in 3 months by getting his nervous system tuned up, okay? Because the nerves coming out of his back that controlled his stomach and his digestive system weren't working very well. So he got that fixed. So we thought all was well. Then came high school, and along with high school came irritable bowel syndrome, okay? Irritable bowel syndrome is lots of fun for anyone who knows what that is, right? That's where the slightest stress causes you to run to the bathroom. So every exam that he went into, he had to run to the bathroom, and he was afraid he was not going to get back in time for the exam because he couldn't leave the bathroom, right? And it's not just stress that can trigger it. It can seem to come on for no apparent reason, right? Not knowing what's going on. And that was happening to Mike. And that went on and on through high school, through college, through graduate school, okay? He also developed a problem in college, eczema. So he started having these skin conditions all over his body, where he started getting these itchy patches that got scaly skin started peeling off, okay? It was embarrassing, all right? And then finally in college, he also developed migraines. And we can see that all of these are all connected to the same thing, right? And this was not a very happy way for Mike to live, okay? But finally, Mike found me because I am Mike, okay? And I learned how to fix myself. And I learned what I'm teaching you tonight in depth about 10 years ago. And once I learned that and I practiced that on myself, all those problems are gone, okay? Within 6 months, all of them gone. So that really pushed me in the direction to want to help other people that were suffering the way I was, because that was not fun, none of it, okay? And I'm sure some of you guys can really relate to what I'm talking about, okay? But I learned how to fix it, and now I want to share that with you. So, bottom line is leaky gut, along with food sensitivities and allergies, are a known cause of autoimmune conditions and chronic inflammatory conditions or diseases. What does that mean? What are chronic inflammatory conditions or diseases? Well, the long-term effects of leaky gut is it leads to all these chronic degenerative diseases we were talking about, okay, because it affects all those different parts of your body. So inflammation in the gut becomes inflammation throughout the body and in other tissues, and that will lead to all the things that you see listed here, okay? Which is why I do help people from so many apparently different conditions, but what they all have in common is they all suffer from chronic inflammation, specifically inflammation that affects all of their 100 trillion cells. Because think about it, we're really nothing more than our cells, right? You can only be as healthy as the health of your cells. They're your basic building block. If your cells are not well, you cannot be well, period. So that's why I became a certified cellular healing specialist, because that's my niche. There are 4 main causes of leaky gut. So let's talk about those. Number 1 is poor diet. Number 2 is toxin overload. Number 3 is chronic stress and hormone problems. And number 4 is bacterial imbalances and or parasites. So let's talk about poor diet. There are 2 things that most people in America are eating on a very common basis that are the number 1 cause of leaky gut and of that eventual inflammation of all of your cells that leads to all those diseases. That number one thing is sugar, okay? It is your cell's enemy. Now, your cells feed on sugar, but not in the massive quantities that we give it, okay? And in the forms of concentration that we give it. So we have created some Frankensugars as well, right? Frankenfoods with these various types of sugar alcohols like erythritol, xylitol, sorbitol, okay? All of which irritate your gut lining further and affect your brain neurotransmitters, okay? So no artificial sweeteners are safe. The only thing that is safe to use is an herb called stevia, right? And it has to be 100% stevia. Don't be fooled by the boxes of sun crystals and pure via, which is erythritol and stevia, and sorbitol and stevia, and sucrose, which is sugar, and stevia, okay? It has to say 100% pure organic stevia. That's what you want, okay? The number two thing in our diet is trans fats. Trans fats, also known as hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. Okay? These oils and fats clog your cell membranes so nutrients can't get in and waste can't get out, and hormones can't be heard by the cell, so the cells can't work right. So you can be making the right hormones, but your cells can't hear them, so guess what? You develop hormone problems. Okay? So where do we get trans fats? Anything that's fried. Period. Doesn't matter how healthy the oil was you started with. Once you fry it, you destroyed it. You hydrogenated it, okay? So if it's fried in coconut oil, if it's fried in olive oil, it doesn't matter, you destroyed it, okay? So fried foods. Also, don't be fooled by the packages that say 0 grams trans fats on the front, right? Because a lot of people have begun to realize trans fats are not good for you. So there's a big marketing push out there to say 0 grams trans fats. But did everybody know that the food industry is allowed to lie to you, right? They lobbied the FDA long enough and with enough money to say, hey, how about there's only half a gram? Can we say 0? I said, sure. If it's a half a gram per serving, you can say 0. Well, the big deal is at about 3 grams, 2 or 3 grams, you start to dramatically damage your cells. You dramatically increase your risk of developing heart disease, kidney disease, liver disease with just 2 or 3 grams. And if they're allowed to put 0 on a package that actually has half a gram per serving, let's say potato chips. How many servings are in that big bag of potato chips? Is it 1 serving? No, it's like 4 servings. And are you going to eat just 1? No, you're going to eat 1 bag, right? So by the time you're done with that, you have gotten those 2 or 3 grams, okay? And they lied to you until it was 0. So always flip the package and look for the words hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated. These are the enemy, okay? Not only that, but specific to your diet, those are the general things, but specifically, if you already have leaky gut, okay, that inflammation in your gut will cause you to develop food sensitivities, as we talked about. So your diet can be a poor diet for you, even though you're eating what you perceive to be the healthiest foods possible. So if broccoli got through your intestinal lining, you're now reactive to broccoli. If cauliflower, if almonds, if walnuts, if chicken, if turkey, whatever it was, it's different for each person. If that got through your lining, your immune system is getting fired up and stimulated by that. Every time you eat it, it could be organic, it doesn't matter. It's a protein issue, okay? So you really need to know what your particular food sensitivities are to know if you're continuing to trigger more gut inflammation. For that reason, there are tests that do that, okay? Let's talk about toxin overload. This is probably the most common cause because it's the thing that people have the least control over. You can try to eat right. You can try to control your stress. You can work on your bacterial balance using good probiotics. But you really have a hard time controlling what you're breathing in, what you're getting in your water, and what's being fed to you in your food that you didn't even realize was there, right? So there are some things that are particularly bad in this category that I'm going to go into more detail about tonight in just a minute. Chronic stress. So when we're chronically stressed, what's the number one stress hormone our body produces? Anybody know? Cortisol, right? And cortisol, when we continue to produce cortisol on a chronic, regular basis, not, hey, I almost got hit by a car, my cortisol went up, now it went back down, everything's fine. But if your body perceives that you're under chronic stress, which means you're unhappy with your job, you're tired of yelling at your kids every day, maybe there's relationship problems, maybe there's money problems, right? Maybe you're in chronic pain from inflammation in your joints or your muscles. This chronic stress creates a high level of cortisol at all times, and that cortisol creates biochemical changes that erode your intestinal lining, okay? It also creates problems with other hormones. Your hormones are about 600 hormones our body makes, and they work in what we call a closed system, which means if you imbalance one, you're going to create imbalance in all the others, okay, to some degree. So if our cortisol stays up too high, we're going to start to really screw up some other hormones. Right away, we're going to screw up insulin and affect our sugar metabolism and how we're getting our food, okay, which can lead to diabetes. We're going to screw up melatonin, which causes you to not sleep well. We're going to screw up your thyroid hormone, which screws up your whole metabolism. And then you don't store your sugar properly. Instead, you store it as fat, okay? So all different ways in which this can happen. Also, the cortisol is going to shut down your sex hormones, okay? So if you have a high cortisol, you don't have a good time in the bedroom. You're trying to relieve stress and you can't, okay? And bacterial imbalance and or parasites. So as we said before, that bacteria in your gut is extremely important. And certain toxins that come into our body destroy them, okay? Certain bad foods that we eat destroy them. High levels of cortisol destroy them. And also, when we have the good guys being killed off, the bad guys can take over, right? Now, one of the main bad guys that we have are parasites. And you might be thinking, well, I haven't traveled to South America. What are you talking about? Well, we all are exposed to parasites every day. 80% of parasites are microscopic and are airborne and come from the soil. So, if you're walking near any dirt, very easy for you to breathe in parasites. Anybody here having a cute little dog like I do, right? So my dog likes to go out and play in the dirt. Then he comes in and I wrestle around with him and I kiss him on the face, and guess what? I'm probably getting parasites from him, okay? You can't see them, but they're getting in there. And then about 20% of parasites are what we normally think about, like the worms, which are usually found in our food, our pork, especially our fish, a lot in our fish. I remember being at a fresh market once where they were cutting up tuna steaks, and they would cut the steak and then literally by a handful pull out the worms, and cut the steak and pull out the worms. And I was like, oh my God, is that fish bad? He said, no, that's normal. This is what we do every day. Okay? Do you think he's getting them all? Not likely. Okay? So who here eats sushi? You need me. Okay. All right, don't do it. Okay. All right. All right. So my questions to you is, do you have leaky gut? Has this gut inflammation begun to affect your immune system defenses? Because again, it's all controlled by this. Could you have food sensitivities or food allergies? And do you have an imbalanced gut bacteria? Would you like to know? All right? Well, it's a very, very easy way to know. There's a simple stool test that you do called an intestinal health stool test. Now, this test used to be extremely expensive, over $1,000, because it used to be just part of a package where you had to do a whole bunch of other things that I didn't necessarily want to know about. But I wanted to know about these things. Well, I just found a new lab that's actually here in Richmond, very, very cool, that will do these tests for us and tell us all these things for just $147. That is crazy inexpensive in the world of testing, okay? So if you want to know if you have leaky gut, this test will tell you. Not only will it tell you if you have it, it will measure your severity of it, mild, moderate, or severe. So a great thing to do is get a test done, treat it, and get a test done and make sure it's gone. Right? No longer do you have to worry about, did I get it all? I think I feel better. I know I feel better, but is it going to come back? Well, now you know if you actually took care of it. Okay? And this test lets me know what direction to take in helping you heal your gut. Okay? The whole reason why we do these is so I could be better armed to help you. So I offer 2 primary digestive repair programs, a basic leaky gut program and an advanced intestinal integrity program. So if we do this and it says you have leaky gut but nothing else, you just need the basic leaky gut program. If you have all these other things happening, your immune system's being affected, your bacteria are all out of balance, which will affect your hormones, affect your brain, affect everything. If you have food sensitivities, allergies, and parasites, you need more of an advanced program. Both the programs are 6 months. It just determines, the test just determines what I do in those 6 months to help you for that. Now let's talk about those toxins, and particularly as combined toxins in food. Let's talk about grains. Who here likes to eat grains? Things made from flour, right? Who here doesn't? Come on, don't lie. All right? Most people love to eat grains in some way, right? That warm bread, a piece of cake, a good piece of pie, right? Whatever it may be, some cookies. Problem is, grains in this country have been completely changed from what they used to be, right? So we all know the grains that we're getting are not the grains Grandma used to get, right? So the biggest issue is wheat. Why all of a sudden is half the world gluten sensitive, right? What's going on? I don't remember anybody being gluten sensitive when I grew up, right? Well, what has changed is that the gluten that we are getting in our wheat now is completely different than the gluten that's natural to wheat. Dr. Norman Borlaug in the 1970s was trying to solve the problem of world hunger. And he created something called dwarf wheat. Now, back in Grandma's day, wheat was this high. Now wheat is this high. All the wheat we get is called dwarf wheat. And dwarf wheat was genetically modified to contain 7 times the concentration of gluten in a modified form and twice the sugar of normal wheat, called amylopectin A. And what I say sugar does to you, right? Creates inflammation, destroys your gut. Genetically modified foods are being found to not be the same as regular foods. They do not process the same in your body. As a matter of fact, who here likes Mexican food? Now, when you go to Mexican, do you get the chips and salsa? I mean, come on, they bring it to the table. You got to eat it, right? Okay? Now, do you stop and say, excuse me, are these organic corn chips? You should, because 95% of the corn that you get in this country, no matter what form it comes to you in, is something called BT corn. BT corn has been genetically modified to have a ticking time bomb bred right into it. That ticking time bomb is a particular pesticide that we're going to focus on for the next 5 minutes that causes massive destruction of your gut lining. And it's been proven in studies that when you eat those corn chips, you actually burn holes through your intestine because of that pesticide. Every single time. So think about that next time you reach for that chip. Okay? That particular chemical is called glyphosate. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in something that everyone's familiar with called Roundup. Okay? And Roundup, you may use it in your own gardens at home, but even if you don't, the rest of America does, and it's going into our water tables and into our air, and all of the commercial farming in this country, and it's now spreading to other areas of the world, use glyphosate in massive quantities. It is the most popular and most pervasive pesticide and herbicide ever used. Okay? Now, glyphosate is particularly damaging, not just to you, but to your unborn child too if you're pregnant. Because glyphosate does a couple of really nasty things. What the heck is glyphosate, and why is it sprayed on everything? Well, glyphosate's first job in the 1960s was as an industrial chelator, which means it was made to grab onto mineral deposits in pipes to clean them out in industry. So it latches onto minerals and rips them out of anything that had the mineral attached to it. Okay? So if it does that in industrial pipes, what's it doing in your pipes? It's stealing your minerals. Okay? Vitamins cannot work without minerals. As a matter of fact, this is one of the reasons why it's such a great pesticide and herbicide. The bacteria that are going to feed on the plants die without minerals. Okay? So because it did that so well, it was then patented as a great antibiotic. And I said before that you have all these bacteria in your gut that are controlling everything, right? So when you ingest grains that have this stuff on it, what's it doing to those bacteria? It's an antibiotic. It's killing them. Okay? Removing vital minerals from us and killing our bacteria. This is Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT. Dr. Stephanie Seneff is the world's most renowned researcher in the world of glyphosate. And she says that our gut bacteria contain the same metabolic pathways as the targeted plants and bacteria that we're targeting with the Roundup. So it's no mystery at all that by using the same product that goes into our body that we're destroying our gut bacteria and leading to things like leaky gut syndrome, irritable bowel disease, colitis, and other gastrointestinal diseases, and they have spiked since the development of Roundup and Roundup Ready GMO-modified crops. So, we know it affects your gut, but what did I tell you before? It doesn't stop there, right? Gut inflammation affects whole body. So what will this lead to? Well, in July of 2013, right in the midst of major controversy and studies coming out talking about how bad glyphosate is, our Environmental Protection Agency, our government's here to protect us, right? So it'd be really smart to raise the allowable limits of glyphosate in our food. Not only that, but particular oilseed crops, flax, who here uses flaxseed? Right? It's supposed to be healthy for you, right? Soybean, anybody do soy products? Maybe vegetarians, right? And canola. Isn't canola supposed to be a healthy oil? Again, big lie. Canola oil is genetically modified rapeseed oil, which is extremely damaging to your intestinal lining and to your cells. Okay? It's like margarine. It's not butter. Okay? These numbers were doubled. The EPA allowed these to be doubled. And when they doubled them, that was just 10 parts per million below the level at which Roundup causes cell death. Is anyone else freaked out about this besides me? This scares the crap out of me, literally, right? Okay. Here's an electron microscope view of what your gut cells look like. These are normal gut cells. They're very tightly intertwined, like soap bubbles. They should be very close together. This is your gut on glyphosate. It looks like shattered glass. It blows apart those cells, creating all those loose junctions. Glyphosate absolutely releases tons of zonulin into your body and will absolutely cause leaky gut, besides all the other problems it can cause. So where will this go? Well, Dr. Seneff tracked intestinal problems and found that sometimes intestinal problems get so bad people die from them, right? Severe celiac disease, intestinal infections. And here is the rise of the use of glyphosate, and here is the rise of death by intestinal disease. Anyone see a correlation? Well, it doesn't stop there. Here is the rise in autism. Do we see a track here? What I said before, your gut bacteria communicate with your brain, okay? When the gut bacteria are imbalanced, it affects and changes the expression of the cells in your brain and can relate to autism. We also see the same rise in thyroid cancer, diabetes, end-stage kidney failure, urinary and bladder cancer. These are just some. I mean, she has tons and tons of this stuff. Even senile dementia, again, directly connected here to what's happening here. Okay? If you don't fix this, you can't fix this. So, my question to you again is, has the most widely used toxic pesticide in the world begun to infiltrate your tissues? Is glyphosate in your body right now? Is it robbing you of vital minerals? Is it damaging your intestinal walls, causing repeated leaky gut in a cycle that just keeps going on and on? And is it leading to those serious chronic diseases we talked about if you don't get rid of it, right? Well, we find out through a glyphosate toxic load urine test. Another new test. This actually measures the amount of glyphosate in your body. Why is that important? Well, you want to get rid of it if it's in your tissues. And there are processes that we use in our office that do that. Okay? And again, that test, just 147 again. All right? So we're having some awesome tests become available at awesome prices. So you can find out. Because guess what? It's very hard to get to the end point of your journey if you don't have a map, right? So if you don't even know what's going on, how are you going to fix it? So absolutely positively, this should be done. So let's talk about the toxic causes of leaky gut. So we said already, glyphosate and other pesticides definitely cause leaky gut. Well, let's say by chance you only ever ate organic your entire life and you were never exposed to glyphosate or any other pesticide for that matter. Okay, you'd have to be a yogi in the mountains somewhere, but let's say that happened. Well, have you ever taken antibiotics? Have you ever used NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which are ibuprofen, aspirin, acetaminophen, Aleve? Anybody here ever use any of those things? Okay? Someone's lying in here because they're not raising their hand. I know you all have had antibiotics or used this stuff, right? Well, these all cause leaky gut. And what's crazy is these are non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. They cause inflammation in your gut lining. Okay? Alcohol. Who likes to have a good drink? Okay? Well, regular alcohol use, more than 1 drink per day, will create leaky gut. Tap water. Anyone here drink tap water? Please tell me no. Okay? So tap water is full of it's full of a couple of toxins that we know and about 20,000 that we don't know because they have detected over 20,000 different toxic substances, but they haven't even analyzed them all because the EPA only has the resources to analyze 15 of the thousands and thousands of toxins found in tap water. But there are 2 that we put in there on purpose, chlorine and fluoride, right? Why do we put chlorine in the water? Why? Kill bacteria. When you drink that water, what do you have in your gut? All right, so you're killing your bacteria. How about fluoride? Why would you put that in the water? Right? It's supposed to strengthen your teeth. Do you know that the best research ever done on fluoride showed a 3% increase in teeth hardening and reduction in cavities? 3% with using fluoride. But did you also know that fluoride is extremely poisonous? If a 5-year-old child ate a tube of toothpaste, they would die. Okay? So what genius decided to make a bubblegum flavor? How crazy is that? Okay? So we're ingesting these things on a regular basis that are disrupting our bacteria. As a matter of fact, chlorine was originally used to kill people. It was called mustard gas. We used it in the early world wars against our enemies. Pretty sad, okay? Chlorine and fluoride kill things, including you if you ingest them on a regular basis. So you want to have really good filtered water. The best filtration is reverse osmosis. That takes out every known toxin there is, okay? You also, when you use reverse osmosis, it does take out the good minerals too. So you need to take a mineral supplement or add some mineral drops back into the water before you drink it to make sure you get your electrolytes. But it takes out all the toxins. That's what I want, right? That's why I went to this website, Clearly Pure Water, and I got a countertop reverse osmosis system, because reverse osmosis usually costs $1,000 or more, and it goes under your sink. Well, this goes on the counter, kind of looks like a Keurig machine, and it's about $250. Okay, so I have one for my office and one for home. That's what I want to be drinking. We have heavy metals. Well, where would we get exposed to heavy metals? We have mercury, lead, and aluminum are probably the most common. Where do we get mercury? Where do we find mercury? Fish, right? That's sushi again, right? Especially the big fish. And fillings. Anybody here have dark fillings in their mouth? Right? So if you have dark fillings, they call them silver fillings, but they're not really silver. That's just the color. They're 50 to 54% mercury in an amalgam with other toxic metals like aluminum. Okay? Now, we've been told for a long time, don't eat with aluminum pots and pans and don't scrape them with a fork, because if you ingest that aluminum, what can happen to you? Do you know? It causes Alzheimer's. Again, heavy metals, destroying your intestinal lining, destroying your cells, causing inflammation of your brain, leading to dementia. Okay? And we also have lead. Well, who's going to be exposed to lead? Where do we get lead? Well, lead is in every home built before 1978. It was built into the walls, into the wood, into the paint that was used. Anyone here ever grow up chewing on toys that were maybe made in China? Lots of lead. Does anyone like to decorate their Christmas tree around Christmas? Okay? And you string the lights, right? Do you ever read the box that says this is a product that's known in the state of California to cause cancer? Warning, contains lead. The green coating is lead. You're supposed to wash your hands immediately after using and wear gloves. Who does that? Who does like I did before I realized that and put it in my mouth to hold it while I was stringing it up? Right? Crazy. We all get exposed to this. Where else do we find mercury and lead? Any woman in here wear makeup? Right? Red lipstick, mercury. Black eyeliner, lead. Anybody here have a tattoo that might have red ink? Mercury. Okay? Anyone here get great organic vegetables in a can? And open the can, and the can has a plastic liner in there. Okay? That's another toxin called BPA. Right? We got it out of our water bottles, thank God, but we still have it in all of our plastics. The stuff you put your food in to go to lunch. Okay? It's leaching out. It's all causing the same destruction. Lots and lots of toxins. There are many, many others. As a matter of fact, just in the typical home, okay, we have BPA found in 9 out of 10 Americans when we test our blood, right? We have all kinds of other toxins all throughout your home. The average baby, when it's first born, we test the umbilical cord blood, 232 toxic chemicals found in the umbilical cord blood from U.S. newborns before you're even born, because it passes on from mom. So who here thinks they may not have toxins in their body? Right? It's crazy. Of course we do. So you have to go through a process of properly drawing those out, which is why I learned to become a detoxification specialist, particularly a cellular detoxification specialist. Why? Who here has ever done any kind of cleanse, like a colon cleanse or a liver cleanse? Anyone? Right? So when you do those are all great because they control and help what we call downstream cleansing, right? The organs and glands of getting junk out. Well, what's being done to pull the toxins out that are deeply embedded in your cells and in your brain? They're not coming out when you're doing those cleanses. That's something that's called true cellular detox, and that must be done in a certain way, taking a minimum of 3 months in order to get these toxins back out of your body. 80,000 chemicals in use in the United States that are banned in the rest of the world. Our government doesn't care so much about us. Now, you can get each of those tests for $147, or here it comes as the seminar special, right? You can do both tests together for $247. It saves you $47, okay? If you'd like to find out about the state of your health of your gut and this toxic load to determine exactly what you need to do to get rid of it, this is how you find out. Okay, these are the screening tests to do. This deal is good tonight. Okay, you don't have to pay the whole $247. We ask that you deposit $47 and then pay the remainder when you come pick up the test kits. But just saying that you want to do that, we'll give you that special on that. So let's talk about the 5 steps that have to be done to repair leaky gut in anyone. Step number 1, you got to remove the foods that we know are creating inflammation, and you have to do right testing for that, and the toxins that are damaging your gut lining. If you don't know which foods are creating inflammation and you don't know which toxins are going on and pulling them out, you can't fix your leaky gut. It's just not possible. It'll come back. You need to replace these bad foods with your personal healing anti-inflammatory foods. And I say personal because when I do a food sensitivity test, we determine what you shouldn't be eating, but also what you should be eating. That allows your gut to heal and repair itself. We also want to repair that gut lining with specific supplements that fix your gut lining. That takes 6 months, which is why it's a 6-month process. We call that my basic leaky gut or advanced intestinal integrity protocols. We also want to restore your gut junction integrity and close those gaps of those leaky cells. And we want to rebalance your microbiome with the right pre- and probiotics. Probiotics are the organisms themselves, right? The bacteria that we want to live in there. Prebiotics are the things that we eat to create a happy home for those bacteria so that those bacteria can grow very rapidly, okay? So those are the 5 things we need to do. Let's break them down. So to remove the things that don't belong there, we do the food sensitivity testing. We get a list of foods that are safe for you to eat and healing, and the foods that you should not eat. And we test 151 foods. We also do the True Cellular Detox program, if necessary, if you show that you have that glyphosate issue, so that we can get those toxins back out of your cells. In the replace category, we replace them with your healthy foods, and there are some general things that we try to replace with, unless these show up on your no-no list. Then we can't do that, okay? But bone broth, who here has heard of bone broth? It's become very popular lately because bone broth contains some things that are very healing to your intestinal lining, right? Collagen, glycosaminoglycans, okay? Different things that are building blocks. Raw cultured dairy, right? Raw milk that's been cultured has an abundance of good probiotics in it and good nutrients. Very different than pasteurized milk that we've gotten that's been flash heated to kill all the bacteria. Well, guess what else it does? It kills the good bacteria and it kills the enzymes that enable you to digest that milk. No wonder people have lactose intolerance, okay? Fermented vegetables, things like kombucha, kimchi, sauerkraut, okay? These all are prebiotics that produce that happy home. Coconut products. Coconut, medium chain triglycerides are very healing and reparative to cell membranes, especially the brain, okay? Sprouted seeds and nuts, okay? And why do we want to use sprouted seeds and nuts? Because there's something in nuts and seeds and legumes called phytates and lectins. And phytates and lectins are chemicals that can create leaky gut. But when you sprout them, that takes away the phytates and lectins, okay? And healthy omega-3s, okay? Things like fish oil, but not from tuna, right? Okay? Unless it's been molecularly distilled to remove all the toxic mercury and PCBs from it that are in our oceans, okay? Should we use flaxseed oil as an omega-3? Maybe, maybe not. What we learned before, there's double the amount of glyphosate in flaxseed. Okay, here's some general foods that are known to eliminate inflammation and some general foods that are known to cause inflammation. There's that fried food we talked about before. Now, I say general because this is not specific to you. When I do food sensitivity testing, sometimes I find out that people are actually having an immune reaction against things like turmeric and ginger or olive oil, okay? So when you've had it long enough, you'll actually become resistant and inflamed by the things that should be anti-inflammatory. So it becomes a little bit more complex to fix that kind of situation, okay? But keep this in mind. You want to stay away from these and go towards these. We want to repair that gut lining with certain supplements. They must include the proper blend of digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid, amino acid called L-glutamine, which is the building block of every gut cell that you have. Licorice root, or DGL, deglycerized licorice. Quercetin also calms down inflammation. And there are many, many more supplements that are utilized and ingredients in my leaky gut and intestinal integrity protocols, but these are some of the key ones that you definitely want to look at. And then we want to restore the gut junctions. We want to tighten them up. Well, there's an aptly named supplement for sale here in this store called Restore. It's a liquid that you take preferably before each meal But if not able to do that, just once in the morning, a tablespoon that helps to close your tight junctions in your gut. You want to avoid gluten because of that change we've made to it, okay? To reduce that production of zonulin that we talked about. Gluten is a major trigger of zonulin, just like glyphosate. You want to avoid those lectins and phytates in the grains by sprouting and fermenting them, and always get non-GMO. So if you're ever going to eat grains, make sure they're organic, okay? Avoid conventional dairy. Conventional dairy has been genetically modified, the cows, to produce more milk and more meat. And when they do that, we get something from them called A1 beta casein, and that's very destructive to your gut lining and produces most dairy allergies or sensitivities. Most raw milk comes from something called Jersey cows, actually. So Holstein cows produce A1, Jersey cows produce A2 beta casein, and A2 beta casein is not inflammatory and does not create that dairy reaction. So a lot of people who have apparent milk allergies are actually reactive to the A1 casein in the conventionally genetically modified milk. If you have raw milk, a lot of times these people don't have any reaction to that. And again, avoid all sugar and trans fats. Lastly, you want to rebalance with the right prebiotics, fermented foods, and fiber, and the right probiotics. Anyone here use probiotics? So does anyone know the strength of a probiotic? How many organisms are in your probiotic? Do you know? You always have to have a minimum of 15 billion to make any kind of impact in something like leaky gut, okay? And you want to have as many strains as available. Does anyone know how many strains are in their probiotic? So the average probiotic usually has 3 to 5 strains, okay? You want at least 5 and at least 15 billion. My favorite probiotic that I use in my protocols has 40 strains and 150 billion. Okay, you guys can't get that directly, it's the doctors only. You also want to change that probiotic often and rotate it. You have hundreds of different types of bacteria that live in your gut. If you take the same probiotic over and over and over, and you're replacing the same 3 to 5 strains over and over and over, you're going to create an imbalance of those that's going to create a problem. So you want to mix it up. Every time you finish a bottle, go to a different brand, a different strain. Okay? You're going to have to repeat eventually, but you want to keep rotating it. So in conclusion, I want to go back to where we started. I want you to think about which direction you're going to choose. I hope you learned something new tonight. I hope you understand how pervasive the problem is and what it can do to you. I hope you've learned what causes it and, more importantly, what fixes it and how to find out if you have the problem. Okay? What I'd like you to do right now for me for just a moment is I want everybody in the room to shut their eyes. And I can see if your eyes are open, so I'll throw my mouse at you. Okay? Everybody please shut your eyes for a moment. Okay? I want you just to think for a second to yourselves about why you're here. What brought you to this room tonight? And it's usually not just, I think I have leaky gut. It's usually something that's happening because of leaky gut. It's impacting your life. I want you to think about how it's impacting your life, how it's affecting your work, your relationships, how you feel. Now, if you chose to be a failure and not do anything with the information I share with you tonight and take no action at all, what will your life be like a year from now? How about 5 years from now? Now erase that picture. Now what if, and you probably won't do this, but what if you actually became one of the successful people and took action on what I asked you to do? What if you got the right testing done to find out if you had the problem so we know exactly how to fix it? And what if you chose to actually fix it? How different would your life be and how would you feel 1 year from now? Or 5 years from now? Now open your eyes. Raise your hand if you liked the way you felt better in the second picture than the first. Right? If you didn't, there's nobody that can help you because you like your misery. Right? I can give you all the information. I can guide you and help you and share with you everything I've learned, everything that healed me and all the people that I work with every day. I can teach you how to heal yourself, but what I can't do is make you act. Only you can do that, right? So I want to leave you on a parting thought that's very simple yet very profound. If you change nothing, nothing will change. So be a 3%er. think about taking action. If you would like us to help you with what we talked about tonight and you would like to get some of those tests, stay in your seats. We'll come to you and help you out with that. If you don't want to help yourself right now, go ahead and take off, go home. I wish you the best of luck, and if anything comes up in the future I can help you with, please let me know. Thank you very much.